What's up, y'all? Welcome to my channel. It's T here, and I'm having a better day than I have. I feel like this is one of the more better feeling days that I've had this week. It's definitely getting to that time of the month. I'm sorry if that's TMI, but listen, I have the worst time. Like, I struggle so much. My mind is a mess. My anxiety is out through the roof, and one of the things that I really struggle with is positive thinking and it's self-doubt. I when it's that time, y'all, I feel like death. Like, I really feel like I'm dying some days. Mentally I feel like I'm fighting for my life, and this is one of the reasons why I wish that some men, I've had men friends, boyfriends, guy friends, whatever you want to call it. I've had guy friends who have minimized that time of the month, and it really irks me because like I said, there are months like where I feel like I'm fighting for my life, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't want to be here. And we're getting to that time, and so I just wanted to talk about positive thinking, and stopping the self-doubt, because I have learned a few things, in my journey, self-healing, all of that fun stuff, if you call that fun. But I have learned a few things, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. This video is really a reminder to myself that, I can do it because I have done it. And I just wanted to get it out in the open, I guess, if that makes sense. So I really wanted to talk first. Let's talk about positive thinking, because as you know, as I'm sure you struggle with, is positive thinking, because that's something that we all struggle with, right? When we're struggling with anything in life, going through any type of struggles in this life, financially, mentally, you know, just anything, friends, family, whatever the struggle may be, it is so easy to look back on ourselves and blame ourselves, you know, to talk down on ourselves, those bad thoughts that say that I'm not good enough and that's why I'm going through this, you know. It's so easy, to say that life hates me, or I'm not made for this life and that's why I'm constantly going through these things. And I want you to take a step back. Look at yourself as if you were somebody else, Imagine you're standing right in front of yourself, right? Like, this is your best friend, or maybe this is your mother, or maybe this is, your child if you're a parent, Would you say those things to them? You know, I I actually got this from a speaker. I'm so sorry I don't remember who the speaker was. I want to say it was it was an older speaker, like from a long time ago. Um I don't think they're here anymore, unfortunately. I don't remember who it was, and I don't want to say the wrong name, so I'm not going to even try to guess. But they said, speak to yourself as if you are somebody that you love. Now, I know that self-love is hard, believe me, I know. Sometimes it's just hard to look at yourself in the mirror and like what you see, right? Just imagine you're just standing right here in front of yourself, you know, and imagine that this is, like I said, your friend or your mom or your child, and they're going through those exact struggles that you are going through. Now imagine yourself saying to them, you are the problem. You weren't made for this life, and that's why you're going through these things. You are not good enough, and that's why you're going through these things. You're just not good enough to succeed, and that's why you haven't reached your goals. You know what I'm saying? Now imagine how that would make them feel. They're going through something. If they're sad, if they're down, they're struggling, you want to uplift their spirits. You need to love yourself enough to do the same thing, to look at yourself in the mirror and uplift yourself. And it's hard. It's hard. I know it's hard, especially when you don't, understand the reason. Then I'm one of those few people out here who believe that things who I don't believe that things happen for a reason. I think that sometimes things just happen. There's no rhyme or reason about it, you know? I don't believe that there is a story already written for us. I'm not the religious type, and it honestly kind of irks me when people say, I have a lot of religious family, and if I'm going through something, all they can really tell me is, you know, there's a plan written out there for you. You just got to trust it. And that's just not good enough for me. Like, you need to just trust yourself. You can change the plan. I don't believe that there is a plan, but there is a future. I mean, I hope there's a future, and we are capable of changing that. It takes one day. It takes one day, 1 hour to change what tomorrow is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm supposed to go to work tomorrow, right? Now what happens if I could just change my mind right now and decide I don't want to go to work. Now I really don't have nowhere to go. You know what I'm saying? Now I really don't have no money to eat. Like, just like that, and that could change my future for the next few months, right? I mean, that's just a minor example, I guess. Like, you could change your life. I could go out and do some harm to somebody. Boom, my life's changed just like that. You could always change your life. Those are just negative examples. You know what I'm saying? I could go out buy me a lottery ticket right now. Now let's say I win a couple $1,000,000, whatever whatever it is I win. Like, boom, my life's changed just like that. You know what I'm saying? That honestly, y'all, I'm just saying that was a perfect example of negative thinking, because the first two examples I just gave were both negative examples. That's why I was like asking the question, why does our mind all of a sudden turn to negativity? You know what I'm saying? I had to really think about that positive example. Like, let me give a positive example. And that's just the prime example of how our minds go straight into negativity. You have to realize, you have to be self-aware that when you start to think, like, just like how I gave them examples, I was like, wait a minute, that was kind of negative. Let me do a positive. When you start to be self-aware and actually realize that you are thinking negative, just change it. Don't get mad at yourself. You can't get mad at yourself, because when you start doing that, you're just beating yourself up over something that you are trying to change. You can't get mad at yourself for something that you're trying to learn. Change doesn't happen overnight. I can tell you that right now. Change does not happen overnight. And sometimes, just like anything that we're trying to learn, we're going to make mistakes. We might fall off. They say relapse is a part of recovery. And I feel like, in a way, when we're going through some sort of self-healing, we are in the process of recovery, because our mind is, in a way, it's damaged. You know what I'm saying? That's why we're always thinking negative. We're always, comparing. We try so hard to love ourselves, but we can't. Why? Because we are damaged, and we are in the process of recovery. Unfortunately, we do fall off sometimes, and we go back to those old ways. We relapse. We start to think negativity, and just keep trying. You know what I'm saying? This is something that I have learned, is that it gets easier. The more you do it, it becomes easier and easier. Just like lifting those weights in the gym. You're not going to go in there and lift that. If you're like me, you're not going to go in there and pick up that 30-pound weight and just start doing curls with it. You know what I'm saying? You might go in there, pick up that 5-10-pound weight, maybe 15 pounds, and eventually you might be able to do more. Eventually, you might be able to go up a weight because you're getting stronger. But that's how our mind works, right? Just like we have to train our muscles, we have to train our minds. We're not just going to wake up one day, I'm done thinking negative about myself. I'm done with the self-doubt. I'm going to start believing in myself. And then think just like that, it's going to change. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. It's a start. You know, it's a good start. And you need to wake up every single day and tell yourself that every day. Even on the days where you're like, I don't want to be here. No, you might feel like that, but you can't think like that, and you can't talk like that. You know, like I said, when you have somebody you love standing in front of you, you know, they're depressed, you know, they're struggling, they're just going through it, you know. As much as they are feeling that way, feeling down and out and depressed, you're still going to talk good to them, right? Now it's time to step out of your mind, out of yourself. Turn around and speak good to yourself, you know. I know it's hard. I struggle with this every day. I've definitely struggled. You know, yesterday was definitely a rough day for me. Yesterday was definitely a rough day. You know, I just woke up and I just didn't want to be here, you know. I was just tired, you know, like just mentally exhausted, you know. I just wanted to cry and scream and pull my hair out. And you know, I really had to think like just feelings are just feelings, you know. They come and go. Sometimes they last longer than we would like them to. But this is something that I tell my son all the time, like happiness is a feeling and you're not going to be happy all the time. You know, as much as we love that feeling, it's not going to stay. You know, we don't wake up just happy, right? We wake up tired. That doesn't mean we're going to be tired all day. We just woke up, you know? It's just feelings are feelings. You have to take them out of the equation when it comes to this kind of stuff. You know, just take them out. It doesn't matter how you feel. It matters what you do and it matters what you say. This is things that I tell my son on a daily basis, you know. Ignore the feelings. It's okay to feel them. You know, we're human. We're going to feel them because this is how we were made. You know what I'm saying? But you just have to just ignore them, you know, just take them completely out of the equation. They're not there, you know. I'm not saying to completely ignore them because there are some things that some we got to deal with, you know. Some things we can't ignore. We got to deal with that, right? I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, you know. I'm just making this video for me, right? But whatever it is, y'all, you know, you really just have to just step out of yourself, you know. Look into the mirror and see a human, because that's what you are. You're human. You look into the mirror and you see a human being. You need to be nice to that. You know, you're not going to go outside and just start talking down on people and talking negative to random people. Like, even if they're not random people, you're not going to go outside and just be like, I hate you. You're not going to reach your goals. You're actually not good enough for this life. No, you're not going to do that. Why? Because it's not right. So what makes it right for you to do that to yourself? For you to sit here and say, I hate you, self. We're not good enough for this life, self. We're not going to reach our goals, self. That doesn't make no sense, does it? Just like our friends, our families, you know, our children, a random stranger outside or we meet, you know, at the store or whatever. Treat yourself the same way you would treat them, you know, but with more love and more care. Because we are in this body. And I hope that we're gonna be in this body for a long time coming, you know. It's time to start being nice to it. It is time to start talking good. Talking to ourselves with love and with care. And, you know, that's really all I got to say. You know, really is just to take a step outside of your body, you know, step outside of your mind and speak to yourself as if you were somebody that you truly loved. Your children, your mom, your best friend, you know, a teacher, you know what I'm saying? Just somebody that you love that's not you. Step outside of yourself and talk to yourself as if you were them, you know. We have to start loving ourselves. You know, I know it's hard, but at the same time, I just want you guys to remember I want myself to remember that it is not a straight path. Learning to love yourself is not a straight path. You know, it's not a clear path. We will fall off of it at times. But I need you to realize that when you fall off, it is okay. I need you to get back up, get back on that path, and keep walking. Because your goal is at the end of that road. Your dreams are at the end of that road. You know what I'm saying? That struggle that you're facing right now, it stops at the end of that road. We just have to get down the road. Okay? Well, that's really all that I wanted to remind myself of today, and I hope that this was kind of somewhat a reminder to those of you who are struggling with this sort of thing. So I guess that's it, and I'll see y'all in the next one.